Oh man, it's the grab bag.
I am not interested in Star Wars The Acolyte. And why? Mainly because I haven't watched a single Star Wars thing since The Last Jedi. I've made it a point to avoid Star Wars. I did watch the first season of Mandalorian, but I didn't even finish the second season. It was not very good. And I guess that came out after The Last Jedi, but they started to have some good fan will. But then everything that happened. So let's dial it back. During the uh, the Force Awakens build up, there was information being shown about Finn being a stormtrooper, and there was this narrative being pushed by publications that the fans were racist, not and attacking Finn for being a stormtrooper. I was one of the biggest Star Wars fans in my area. I owned 90 plus of the EU books. I read multiple comics. I didn't really play too many of the games. I was mostly into reading the stuff. And when I saw that, I was like, either it's a new cloning program or conscripts. And it turned out to be conscripts. Um, that should have been a warning bell there because these publications ran with this. And I was really big into the Star Wars community, and I did not see that anywhere in the Star Wars community. And I was like, okay, well, where are they getting these, messages or whatever from? Never revealing their sources, just claiming that people were being racist. And then you get The Last Jedi, and they started to attack the fans again. I actually came out of watching The Last Jedi thinking it was an okay film. Like, visually, it was really good, but I thought it was an okay film until it sat with me for a while. Then I realized that it was a big steaming turd, and it did more to damage the Star Wars franchise than anything. Because as much as the prequels were not the best movies in the world, they didn't damage the world other than giving us a concrete past for the Clone Wars and the fall of Anakin. And it may not have lived up to everybody's standards, but it was still something that expanded the universe and made it feel larger. And even with its flaws, it did good. With the sequel trilogy, it shrank the universe, made everything seem inconsequential, came up with a new ability of light speed ramming, which breaks everything. Because if you can light speed ram a ship, you could light speed ram a Death Star. And those kind of things may not fully destroy a Death Star, but they would do massive amounts of damage. Unless you were using a big enough ship and then you rammed it. That's kind of the problem. There were a lot of things that were done in the sequels that damaged the franchise and shrank the universe. And on top of that, you had Disney itself calling all of its fans racist, misogynists, bigots, and all these other things. And I was still at that time of The Last Jedi very much into the Star Wars community. I literally have two Star Wars tattoos. And it was during that time that I got incredibly fed up with Star Wars. And it just kept going. And it's very interesting that Star Wars keeps putting these narratives out about the fans being racist or bigots or whatever else right before they launch their shows. And they often do not reveal any information of where they're getting this information from or anything like that. They're just attacking the fan base. And quite frankly, the fan base now is a fraction of what it used to be. I have to pretend like I still like Star Wars when people talk to me about my tattoos. Thankfully, these tattoos have more meaning than just simply being a Star Wars tattoo, but it's very frustrating. Then you have the additional fact that they've another warning sign was when Disney scrapped the entire EU so they could do something of their own. The EU, well, not perfect, was very good. The Bantam books kind of got repetitive, super weapon here, super weapon there, but then Del Rey came in, and the Del Rey books started trying to actually make long sagas and made it more than just super weapons. And one of the things that the Acolyte show has talked about is that they're going to make the Force manifest into a female form. That being said, this is something that has happened in Star Wars past. In the Clone Wars, you had the Mortis event where you had the son, the daughter, and the father, and they were embodiments of the Force, known as the Ones. This got expanded upon in Fate of the Jedi, which is some of my favorite books from the EU, where they are basically kind of like eldritch gods, and that they were killed during that time on Mortis when Anakin got the Mortis blade. And that basically there is no balance to the Force because they are dead. And that, of course, is part of the reason why Abeloth is freed, and they're not able to. You have to find a new way of stopping her because the ones no longer are there. So it does have some lore in the background. The only problem is that it was in the cartoon and in some books, and it was not really ever in any live action thing. The problem is that unless it's the daughter, and it's, if it's not the daughter, because this is supposed to be set 100 years prior to the fall of the Republic, if it's not the daughter, then it doesn't count. Then this is something else. There's also other issues with the Acolyte, but one of the things that's frustrating is when these producers and actors and everything come out and they're saying they wanted to make white men cry. And it's like, wow, your struggling fan base has already shrank, so you're just going to go in and insult an entire group of people based off of their gender and their race. I mean, if you were to do this with any other race or any other gender, that would be kind of racist or bigoted. Isn't it weird? But I see that the Acolyte's going to completely drop as a turd. I mean, first off, you have Leslie Headland, who is the person in charge of this series, and she was the former top assistant to Harvey Weinstein. And if you know anything about the Weinstein case, you'll realize that there's a higher than likely chance that there could have been some shenanigans that involved her. And yet she failed upward. So, I have no interest in The Acolyte. I don't intend on watching it. Star Wars has been dead now for 5 years. I realize that it is a corpse parading around, and that's it. It's a corpse. I don't understand why people are trying to make it up a big thing. They should just ignore it at this point. Eventually, Star Wars will be done and over with. This whole push for the High Republic books, they sold in the thousands to like 10,000 books per book. Whereas the EU, even its lowest was 30,000 plus, and its highest broke into the millions. And none of the High Republic has even touched the old EU. So the material that they're trying to use is the least popular that it's ever been. And Star Wars is at its lowest point in popularity that it's ever been. And that's just simply it. Star Wars is dead. Let it rest in peace.